I don't think so, no.
No. Well, Bill, this is a great honor to have you on the author's table today, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on the program.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you again too.
How have you been?
Oh, I've been doing fantastic. Just keeping busy, just working, and
Yep.
the days are flying by.
I know that feeling, believe me.
Yes, yes. And okay, Bill. So, in one word, Bill, describe yourself.
Oh, one word. You're asking a writer to
Yeah.
use one word. Come on,
you, you,
that's hard.
you have to put your creative cap on today.
Yeah. Probably in context of writing, I think of myself mostly as a storyteller.
Yes,
Um, whether I'm writing songs or whether I'm writing a novel, it's all about the story for me. I think stories are very powerful things, and I enjoy being able to communicate with people in stories.
and I agree with that, and you're very good at it.
Well, thank you,
Of
thank you.
course. I've seen you in action, so I
Well, there's something about stories that I think they may be somehow hardwired into our DNA as human beings. That's the way we understand the world around us. It's the way we connect with each other. I mean, what are we doing here today but telling each other stories? And so I think the power of a story really is something that is just connected to who we are as human beings.
I agree. That's why I
Yeah,
always say everybody has a story to tell, right?
they sure do. And if you take time to listen to them, some of them you can steal and make a
Oh,
really good novel out of too.
that's right. Oh, now I know your writing began with poetry and song lyrics.
Yep.
Now, have you ever implemented your own poetry into your music, and was it easy to do?
Yeah, when I write a song, usually the song and the lyrics, the melody and the lyrics come together. I've never written a poem and then set it to music,
Okay.
but I've really just kind of I'm not very disciplined when it comes to any form of writing. It's a lot of inspiration and effort to make it work. So usually when I'm writing a song, the melody and the lyrics kind of come together, and that's an interesting experience. But the one seems to drive the other, so that's been
Okay.
the way it's worked for me.
Excellent. Yeah, you just have to find the right formula that works for you, but it may not work for someone else, but it works for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think quite often that's the case. That it's a personal experience.
Hmm.
Writing is a very personal form of expression. I
Excellent.
belong to a couple of writers groups, and everyone in the group has their own approach to what they're doing, and so I think we each have to find our own way. I think
That
you're right.
that's right. Creativity is one of those things. There are no rules.
Exactly. Exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
and
it's
it's different for you. It's different for me,
yes,
and it's different from time to time. I wrote my first novel, 15 years ago, and the way I went about things then and the way I go about things now are quite different. So
sure.
we change, we evolve as we get better with our craft. Hopefully,
That's right. Absolutely. Now,
yeah.
throughout your life, you loved to read. Now, did subject matter change as you got older, or reading anything as long as the story is good?
I think I lean toward the last. A good story is a good story, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, whatever it
Yeah.
is. I mean, I read the back of cereal boxes. I read anything
Yes.
that has wording on it, but I really appreciate a good story. And I'll tell you one thing that puts me off when I read a writer's work. If I'm reading a book and I feel like the writer is showing off, trying to impress me by how well they can turn a phrase or how great a vocabulary they have, that really distracts me from the story.
Hmm.
And what I really want to know is what's this story about? Where is it going? And I would prefer that the author kind of just stay in the background and just let the story do the work.
That's true.
So,
So,
yeah.
so, so, how do you feel about advertising?
I don't know if you remember, there years and years ago there was a book called The Hidden Persuaders, and it was all about the some of the dirty tricks that advertisers use
Oh yeah.
to embed their messages in people's brains.
S- s-
And so, yeah, I'm not a big fan
That's like the
of
subliminal messages.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
So, Bill, now who is or was your favorite writer?
Oh, that's changed over the years. I think when I was younger, I read everything by Hemingway that I could get my hands on, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved the way he would develop his characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I read, like you said, I look for a good story to read, but I think I've got everything that uh, Richard Russo has ever written is on my bookshelf. I really appreciate his style. And then you know what I used to love to do? It's hard to do anymore because bookstores are few and far between. I
Mm-hmm.
used to love to go to the bargain bin at the bookstore and just prowl through there looking for titles and reading the back, dust jacket to see whether there was a story there that might be worth reading, regardless of who wrote it. So
You know
it's
what?
a story for me.
Yes. You know, one of the favorite places that I always used to go to, our church used to have a rummage sale every year.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I used to go there, and that would be the first thing I go to, either the electronics or the books.
Yep, yep. And you can just find some real treasures there. And
Absolutely.
sometimes you find things that are not in print any longer, and you couldn't find them anywhere else. So
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm with you. I enjoy doing that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Now,
Yeah.
now describe throwback fiction.
Yeah, I think the way younger writers write today is different than the way Hemingway
Oh
wrote,
yeah.
or some of the John Updike, or some of the other writers that we grew up with. My books, I try to tell a story in a pretty straightforward manner. Um, I uh, I don't really fall into a particular genre. I write mainstream literary fiction, so I'm not writing any fantasies or superheroes, and I don't write about serial killers and vampires. I write the kind of stories that I always associated with being a good book
Mm-hmm.
20, 30, 40 years ago. I hopefully the language I use and the subject matter is timeless enough that it still speaks to young writer or young readers today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I tend to write in the style that you might have found more common 30, 40 years ago.
And that's good because it is timeless.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yes.
I think good stories told with clear writing, uh, they don't have an expiration date on them.
That's
I think
right.
they speak to people of all ages and all different kinds of backgrounds. So
And
that's the way I think of it anyway.
yes, it's true because you can, like you said, you wrote a book like many years ago, and it's still
Hmm.
selling today, so it does prove it right.
Exactly. Yeah. I spoke to a book club this past week, and two of the members came up to me afterwards and told me that their favorite book of mine, and they had read several, but their favorite was actually the first one that I wrote. And I thought that was pretty good, that it was still
Yes,
resonating with people today. So
that's awesome though. That's a good feeling,
yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, you and I, we know we're not going to get rich and famous doing this, right? So what we really are looking for that keeps us going is when we get those comments back from someone who's read a book, and someone who doesn't just say, "Oh, I liked your book," but they say something about it that
That's
really
right.
spoke to them in some way.
That's right.
And then well, okay, it's worth all that time and effort because somebody out there is really reading it and getting something from the work. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a great feeling, and that's what keeps you going. If it wasn't for that, I don't know. I'd be out playing golf or
Oh,
something.
you'd rather be writing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. Now, Bill. Now you have written 18 books,
Hmm.
12 novels, and 4 faith books. Now is that correct, Bill?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
and
So
then also the 16 or 17 and 18 are a book of poetry and song lyrics, and
yes,
then I also wrote a children's book with my granddaughter when she was
yes,
6.
yes,
So
and we'll be getting into
okay.
that. So let's talk about your first 3 novels called Adirondack Trilogy.
Yeah.
Now, this trilogy is set in of course, the Adirondack Mountains of New York. Now, it's Healing River, Home to the Mountains, A Fawn for Christmas, and Once I Was Lost.
Yep.
So, can you please talk about those, Bill, please?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Adirondacks are one of my favorite places in the world. We lived right near there. I used to spend a lot of time camping and canoeing in the mountains, so love that area. And actually, the first book that I finished was Home to the Mountains, subtitled "A Fawn for Christmas."
Mm-hmm.
When I finished it, I wasn't really happy with it. So I set it off to the side and I went on to write Healing River, also set in the Adirondacks. And then after I finished Healing River, I went back and rewrote Home to the Mountains, added some story elements. And when I finished it the second time, I really loved the book. So that became my second published novel. And then I Once Was Lost is a story about search and rescue dogs and their handlers. And that one was inspired by my son, who has a, at the time, was a dog handler for a dog that detects explosives.
Mm.
And so I saw the relationship between the handler and the dog. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I want to explore that. And so I created this fictional location in the Adirondacks with a group of people who do search and rescue work. But it gave me an excuse to write about a place that I just love being in, and people who read those books can tell me that know the Adirondacks
Yes.
can tell me that they really can picture the locations, even though they're all fictional. You know, in their
Right.
mind and in my mind, I can see what they look like. So.
But you still had a connection on the which that's personal too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's not always the case with my books, but quite often, particularly the settings, I try to write about places that I have been, so I can be somewhat authentic in what I'm saying about them. And especially if I've lived in an area and I know it in detail, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes it easier to make the story work because you can picture the locations, and
Absolutely.
I think it adds a richness to the story.
And
Yeah.
plus, too, your readers could then have that visual in their mind too. They're connecting.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't get away from the Adirondacks. I actually wrote another book set in the Adirondacks later on in my writing experience, and I've got another one that is kind of in beginning stages that may or may not get written. But I just enjoy that area. I think it's a setting that works well for the kind of books that I write.
Wonderful. Now, your first novel set is primarily in Florida. Now, the True
Uh,
Lies and Consequences.
oh yeah, yeah. That was the first one I set after in the Florida area when we moved down here. Yeah.
So now, who is Connor Jameson?
Well, he's a fictional character, but he's a journalist who goes to Florida to the bedside of his dying grandfather, and while he's there, uh, his grandfather is kind of in and out with focused one day, not focused the next. But he starts telling him the story of his life, and Connor learns very quickly that his grandfather is not who he thought he was.
Mm,
Uh, and it turns out that he has a different identity, as a what turns out to be something of a secret life that Connor had
mhm.
no information about whatsoever. So, as a journalist, of course, he's fascinated by this, and so he starts probing and investigating and trying to fill in the blanks in what his grandfather tells him. So that was a great fun to write. I enjoyed the setting it in Florida, but I also just love the detective work, I guess,
Oh yes,
that the journalist had to do.
I,
So.
I can see that as a movie though.
Yeah, yeah, I think it
Yeah,
would work well. And the book has some flashback sequences from his grandfather's early life, which includes some time in Europe during World War II. I mean, there's a lot there. I agree. If you know any producers, send them my
yeah,
way.
that's right. Absolutely. I can visually see that already.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
People tell me that when they read my books that they're very visual, and I think in a way that's probably because when I write them, they are kind of unfolding visually for me. And
Hmm.
when I write a scene, I'm picturing the location and the events, and I try to maybe describe those so that the reader can picture them as well. Of course, the great thing about reading a book is that you get to, as the reader, you get to decide really what people look like and what the location looks like. Becomes what your
Exactly.
imagination allows it to be.
Exactly.
But I try to give them something to work from anyway in the
Yes.
story.
Now let's talk about One Day More.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's that's a very different book. The gist of the story is that a young professional athlete suddenly has cardiac arrest, and he's in the ER. And in the ER, there are 9 people: doctors, nurses. The hospital chaplain is there. His agent is there, and they're all watching while the doctors try to bring him back. The doctors can't bring him back. And then after they pronounce him dead, all of a sudden his heart starts beating again. And all 9 characters in the room hear a voice from somewhere say, "One day more." And so the story is written from 9 perspectives. Each
mm,
chapter is a different character, and it's what they think they heard in that room and what it means to them and how it affects their life. And each one of them is changed in some way by this idea that maybe there's one more day of life made available to live. So I had real great fun writing that book because it was a totally different structure than I'd ever used before.
it makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. Life is a precious gift,
That's
and
right.
we don't know. The Bible says no man knows the number of his days, and to be able to think when you get up in the morning, I've got another day to do something with. That's a pretty great thing. So
Absolutely.
every day is to be appreciated. Yeah.
I always say that every day is a good day.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I had a friend when I worked in nonprofits in a pretty stressful environment, and he was under more stress than I was. And but anytime you asked him, "How you doing today, Bob?" he would say, "I'm great." He always had that positive
Positive.
attitude because
Hmm.
he had a new day, and that new day could be something
That's
good.
right. That's right.
So,
That's the whole thing too. If, when you're around positive people and
yeah,
you're around strong people that you can learn a lot from,
yep.
it can take you places. You know.
It really can, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It sets a bar a little higher for you sometimes that says, okay, I can reach farther than I thought I could.
That's
I
right.
can maybe I can do something that I didn't think I could do.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's really good. You want those people in your life. You don't need the people that drag you down. You need the people that inspire you, that encourage you, that build you up.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
now now you have written a children's book
yeah,
called Bucky the Manatee.
yeah.
And you did write that with your granddaughter, and she was 6
Yes,
at the time.
yeah, yeah.
Now, was this a difficult approach, or was it easy for you to do?
Well, I tell you, it was a really strange thing. She was over for a visit, and we were in the pool swimming at the community here, and she started telling me this story about a manatee with buck teeth, which of course is I don't know where that came from, and there was a mermaid in the story, and there was a shark in the story, and so she went home, and I was thinking that night, I bet she'd get a kick out of it if I could create a story out of what she told me. So her birthday was coming up, so I went ahead and I put the pieces together, took her characters and added a little bit of storytelling to it, and then I used some clip art and I produced a small copy of the book. And I went down to one of the copy centers and I just made a copy for her, and that was going to be her birthday present. But when I got it done and I started showing it to other people, they said, "Hey, that's really good." So then I decided maybe I should try to be more serious about this.
Hmm.
So I hired an illustrator and had professional illustrations done, and we created a book called Bucky the Manatee. And she's listed on there as co-author because it was really her idea and her characters. So she's 12 now, and but she's still really proud of that book. So,
So she had to give you the approval to do it then, right?
oh yeah, actually, that's right. Yeah, once I created it and decided to do more with it, I talked to her and I said, "What do you think?" And she
That's
thought it was a
awesome.
great idea.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
Now you have also written a daily devotional. Now this is a guide called Jesus Told Them Many Things in Parables. Now
yeah,
can you talk about that, Bill, please?
Yeah, that's one of two devotionals that I've written with the idea of providing one page of the book is for a daily devotional. So there, each page has a, scripture passage. It has a reflection on that scripture, and then it has a brief prayer. The one that you mentioned about parables,
Hmm.
uh, every one of the devotions in that book is based on one of the parables of Jesus, and of course the parables were stories. So
Yes.
Jesus was one of the best storytellers we've ever had, and there have been many novelists, by the way, that have stolen themes from his parables and turned them into novels. I haven't done that yet, but I did write a devotional guide for people to be able to kind of center themselves on those teachings that he offered us.
So now, what inspired you to write that one?
Well, I was a pastor. I'm retired now,
Hmm.
but I was a pastor for several years, and I was always a fan of the parables. And I had people who I know enjoyed having some personal devotional guide that they could use at home, and so I started thinking about the possibility. And as I started doing some writing for a blog that I was writing at the time, I started focusing on parables, and when I realized that there was something there that I could work with,
Hmm.
then I went ahead and developed the devotional guide.
Very nice, because
Yeah,
everybody can use that
yeah,
365 days a year.
exactly, exactly. And the thing about a good story, and the parables are good stories,
Hmm.
is that every you can read them more than once,
That's right.
and when you read them each time, sometimes you get a little something different out of it, and that's one of the wonderful things about those parables. Depending on where you are at that point in your life, you'll find something in that parable perhaps that will speak to you that you haven't noticed before.
That's right.
So yeah, so it's a really nice way to delve into the stories that Jesus told.
And the thing too, it covers everything, not just good. It covers bad,
Yeah,
sickness. I mean everything.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I
And
mean, like any good story, if it's true to life,
that's
there are going
right.
to be good times and there are going to be tough times. And in
Absolutely.
fact, the second devotional guide I wrote has a subtitle that something like "Encouraging Words for Difficult Times," and I think a lot of times that's what people are looking for. When you get on a hard time in your life, you're looking for something to lift you up a bit, and there are lots of
Guidance.
those kind of encouraging things to include. So yeah,
Absolutely. Guidance. I think
yeah,
everybody needs guidance.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And to be, it's not that I have the answers and I'm telling them the secret of life or anything. I'm simply pointing them in a direction for that was provided by people far wiser than I am,
Yeah.
that can help them to perhaps figure out their own solution to
Eh,
whatever the difficulty is that they're dealing with. Yeah,
Absolutely right. Yes.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
Bill, you have written a story about two families called "Remember Who You Are."
yeah.
Now what happened in this story?
That's one of the, I think, really interesting books that I've written. It's the story of the Hayashida family, which is a Japanese American family who were interned during World War II. People sometimes forget that 120,000 Japanese American citizens
Hmm.
were put into holding camps for 2 or 3 years during World War II because people were concerned that they might be supportive of the Japanese during the war. And when they were put into those camps, many of them lost everything they had. Their homes were taken away, their businesses, their possessions. They couldn't take
Hmm.
anything with them except a suitcase. So the story here is that the Hayashida family was one of those families. The Wolf family was a family where the patriarch of the family was a really shrewd businessman, and he took advantage of these folks who were sent away and became very wealthy. Then fast forward a few decades, and Suki Hayashida, a daughter of the family, falls in love with Trent Wolfe, who is the son of the man who took everything from her family. She doesn't know who he is at the time. she doesn't make that connection until she's already hooked. And
Hmm.
so it's the story of how that plays out in their life, and up until Trent actually passes away, and Suki is inherits all of this money that gives her a chance to try to right the wrongs that were done to some of those families.
You know, you think about though, especially like during World War II, that there's so many untold stories
Yes,
of things that really did happen just like that, and which nobody
yes,
knows about.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's shocking when you think about it that 120,000 American citizens,
Hmm.
they were not immigrants. I mean, we're hearing enough about that today already. But
Hmm.
these folks were citizens of this country, and they were denied their constitutional rights. They were imprisoned for 3 years, for the most part, simply because their heritage was Japanese.
Hmm.
Uh, and to think that, I mean, I know World War II was a terrible time, and the Japanese army was a real difficult foe for us.
Hmm.
But to think that we would do that to American citizens because of their heritage is a pretty shocking thing for some people to
And
realize.
I think that's in everyone is a weakness because we stereotype first before we know anything about them.
That's right. Especially if people can be identified by the way they look. If
Yes.
you can look at someone and say, "Oh, that person is one of
Right.
those people," then we too often we fall into that uh, habit of stereotyping them, and reacting in an unfair way.
That's correct, and that's more
Yeah,
like shame on us.
exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, now, who is Albie Albertson in your book called "The Mayor of Pudding Street"?
Yeah, Mayor of Pudding Hill.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. Hmm.
my wife and I were vacationing in Nova Scotia, and we were walking along the docks in Lunenburg one morning, and we met this old guy who comes strolling along, and he's got two walking sticks in his hands, both made from old broomsticks, handmade things. And we stopped to talk to him, and we must have talked to him for 15 or 20 minutes. And when we walked away, I said to my wife, that guy is a character in a book waiting to happen. And even though we were on vacation, we got back to the hotel that night, and I started writing, and I wrote a short story just with this guy in mind. And after I finished the short story, I said, nope, that's not enough. And so it turned into a novel. And it's all fiction. I mean, it's not anything that really happened to this gentleman. I don't have any idea who he is, or how to reach him, but he inspired me to make up this story about a 100-year-old man who had been involved in just about every significant historical event in Nova Scotia over that past century. And I had great fun writing that one. And that one was the one that the Florida Writers Association awarded its top award for literary fiction in 2023. So,
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
well, I was surprised, but very pleased. Yeah, yeah,
See, that's funny though that how we can look at something or even smell something to inspire to do something else at which you didn't even know. You
exactly.
know.
I think all writers have an imagination, certainly, but I think we also have a real sense of curiosity. And like you said, you see something, you smell something, you think about a thought, and then you start asking yourself, well, why is that? Why did that happen? What would
Hmm.
happen if it went a different direction? What could happen next? And that's where stories start to take shape, and that curiosity that just takes a little spark
That's
to
right.
get it going. Yeah.
There's a reason for everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you don't know what the reason is, make one up.
That's right. That's
Uh,
right.
that's what writers do, right?
Absolutely right.
Why did that happen? I don't know. Let me imagine how it might have happened, and
That's
we
correct.
go from
Yes.
there.
Now,
Yeah.
Bill, you have a new website,
Yes. Yeah.
and what is your?
WilliamDeliaBooks.com. Just my old website wasn't working right, so I took it down, and I went through some redevelopment. Anyway, the new site went up about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. WilliamDeliaBooks.com.
And that is where guests can learn more about you and purchase your books through your website as well.
Yes, I don't have a store on my website, but I have a link for each book to Amazon.com where they
Nice.
can purchase the book in whatever format they need.
Fantastic. Now,
Yeah.
now, now I know your writings began with poetry and song lyrics, and you've
Hmm.
collected some of your favorite pieces in a collection entitled On the Edge of Forever.
Yeah.
Now, and today you do have a surprise for us.
Well, you asked me if I would be willing to do a song for you, and I'd be
Yes.
happy to do that whenever you like.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Well, then let me grab my guitar. I've got it
Okay.
right here.
Fantastic.
I've been writing a lot of songs lately. I'm not sure why, but I kind of go in spurts, and this is one that I wrote just a couple of months ago. It's called "She's the One for Me."
Okay.
I hope you can. The mic will pick up the guitar. I don't
Yep.
know. Can you hear that?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
It was late on a Saturday night. Nothing was going right. I was all alone, thinking about going home. She walked into the room, shook me like a sonic boom with just one look. One look was all it took, and I knew she was the one for me. I said, "Hey, baby, won't you dance with me? Got a feeling you could be the one I'm waiting for. It's a feeling I can't ignore." She smiled and took my hand, made me such a happy man, and we danced all night. I held her tight, and I knew for sure she was the one for me. You just don't know when someone you never seen before will walk through the door, be the one worth waiting for. From the moment that we met, anyone could see, without a doubt, she was the one for me. So we danced the night away, kept going till the break of day. When the band went home, we were all alone. I looked deep into her eyes, and then to my surprise, with a smile so sweet, she knocked me off my feet when she said, "You are the one for me." You just don't know when someone you never seen before will walk through the door, be the one worth waiting for. From the moment that we met, anyone could see, without a doubt, she was the one for me. It all happened way back when, but I still know like I did then, she is the one. She'll always be the one. We've been together so long now, never ever wondered how it all will end. We do it all again, 'cause in the end, she'll always be the one for me. Yes, in the end, she'll always be the one for me. She'll always be the one and only one for me.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Brad. Thank you. Like I said,
Fantastic.
I've been on a tear. I think I've written half a dozen songs since the first of the year. So I don't know when it'll stop, but I'm going to keep
Keep
going
it
as long
going.
as it keeps coming. Yeah.
That is fantastic. You know, when we see you at the Christmas concert,
Yeah.
we just love hearing you sing.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Cause
Yeah.
I know you're very talented, and with my mom up there too. So
Yeah.
it's just a nice thing, and with you up there always talking about next songs and history, in which I think that is really, that ties it all together. Where these songs are coming from.
Well, there's the story aspect again, right? I mean,
Exactly.
a great
Yes.
song is wonderful, but what do you know about it? Why, where did it come from? Why was it written? What's happened since it was first put together? Those kind of stories really help you appreciate the music even more. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just music being played, but when you talk about the history and where it came from and how things intertwined, it's
Yep.
a nice it's a history element which I think is really
Yeah.
neat to understand.
Yeah. I went to my grandson is in the third grade. I went to his concert just a little while back, and they were doing songs from my generation. And the director of the choir said, "You know, I had to teach them something about the times that you folks lived in order for them to understand the songs they were singing."
Hmm.
And so they not only learned the music, but they got a history lesson with it,
That's nice.
which was really great.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah.
now, Bill, when is your next event?
Well, the next thing for me actually is a concert. I've got a show coming up. I play with a group of guys, and we're doing a show in a week. I don't have another writers event scheduled at the moment. Like I said, I just did a presentation the other day. Right now, I'm digging in deep on a new book, and I think that's going to keep me going for a while.
Oh, fantastic. So how far are you in this new book?
I'm chapter 7, I think it is. But for the first time, usually when I write a book, I don't know where it's going. You know,
Okay.
it unfolds as I go. This one, I've got a pretty clear vision of the whole story, so I'm really excited by it. It starts in Poland in World War II, and so I've had to do a fair amount of research to get going here. But now I've got most of that behind me, and I'm heavily into the writing, so I'm optimistic it'll be ready in the fall.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah,
That's what
that's
I'm hoping.
yeah, and then because I'll be seeing you in November or December.
Yeah, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
look forward to that. Yeah,
yeah, fantastic.
who
Well,
knows? Maybe by then I'll have a new one to show you.
that'd be fantastic. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I thank you so much, and it's an honor to have you on the program today, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Well, you're very kind, and I appreciate the invitation. It's good to see you, and it
Good,
was really nice to talk with you.
you too, Bill, and thank you so much, and just keep up the great work and the creative juices, and just keep it going.
One day at a time.
That's
Every day
right.
is a gift, and if it's still here, I'll keep working.
That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill, and you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in December.
Okay, good enough. Thanks,
Thank
Brad.
you. You're very welcome. Okay, bye bye.
Bye.